Good morning. Good morning, everybody. All right. So last year, I created a special commission to review Baltimore's public Confederate monuments. The commission was made up of 4 members of the Baltimore City Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation, or CHAP, and 3 members from Baltimore City Public Arts Commission. I tasked this group with conducting a thorough review of Confederate monuments on city-owned properties. And based on their findings, the commission would issue, I asked the commission to issue a series of recommendations for the future of those monuments. Recently, the special commission submitted a report to me on their findings regarding the city-owned public Confederate monuments. All of these monuments are in prominent locations throughout the city. The Confederate Soldiers and Sailors Monument, located on Mount Royal near Mosier, the Confederate Women's Monument, located at Bishop Square Park, Lee Jackson Monument, and the Roger Taney Monument, located on, located at Mount Vernon Place. The report paid special attention to the historical and social context in which these monuments were created, the intentions of the monument sponsors, the roles that these monuments have played in Baltimore over time, as well as the messages that they currently convey. I've taken these recommendations under serious consideration, and I'd like to personally thank the Commission's members and the staff who managed an inclusive process that incorporated public testimony from almost 250 people. I particularly want to thank Casey Brent from my office, Eric Holcomb from CHAP, Lauren Shiznick, I hope I get that right, Shizik, from CHAP, and Ryan Patterson from BOPA. I want to thank everybody for your hard work. They oversaw a civil and honest, many civil and honest discussions on a very polarizing topic, and that took great courage and skill, which they demonstrated well. I hope that their efforts can become a model for other jurisdictions throughout the country on how to create an impartial, fair, and democratic process to address complex issues of history and race. I also want to thank the citizens of Baltimore and other interested parties who attended hearings and submitted testimony regarding these monuments. The release of the report is not the end of this deliberative process. Instead, it lays the groundwork for the next steps that my administration will undertake in response to the Commission's recommendations. In the short term, I'm requesting that CHAP will work with stakeholders to install interpretive signage at all 4 monuments. Furthermore, I'm requesting that CHAP and BOPA consider any viable relocation proposals should such proposals be made. And at this time, the city has not received any proposals for relocation sites or interest from third parties in taking over ownership of any of these monuments. And now, to provide you with more information about this process and the recommendations, I would like to introduce Dr. Aaron Bryant, the Commission Chair. Aaron?
Well, I don't have a lot to say. Thank you, Mayor. And I don't have too much more to add, but I will say that I think the process was really fascinating for me. It was an opportunity for the city to come together to talk about issues of history and race. I'm a curator and a historian, and so to bring the city together to talk about these issues was really important to me. One of the things that I found really exciting was how civil the discussion was, particularly on these topics that could be pretty heated. And I must also add that I was very proud of the city, proud of its residents, and I think also on behalf of the Commission, it was really an honor to serve in this process. And hopefully we'll have more similar kinds of discussions in the future.
Any questions about the monuments?
So what would your response be to people who say that removing particularly the tiny section of the Jackson statue is almost erasing history and not acknowledging a part of the past, which is it's clearly ugly, but it's still not acknowledging what happened or how Maryland was involved?
I think that's why the recommendation from the Commission to work on immediately developing interpretive signage is important. I don't think any of the Commission members were interested in erasing or rewriting history, but we certainly should work to interpret it for today's context.
Mayor, in January, the commission voted to recommend removal of these two statutes. It's been a long time. How do you feel personally about that decision, given that you've had time to think about it?
The thing is, if there's a vote to remove it, and then there's the ability to remove it. You need the funds and you need relocation. So I think the decision to put the interpretive signage, or the interpretive signage, is it's a practical and present solution to a complicated issue. I think everyone can say you should remove them all, and put them in one big Confederate monument park, right? But who's paying for it? So I think that the thing that I appreciate about the commission is its respect of history and its understanding of fiscal limitations, and I think they made came to a good balance.
And what is the interpretive signage going to say?
Well, that's something that has to be figured out. I mean, but I think it's about placing the monuments into some sort of context. So you look at the larger historical context of the Civil War and these monuments, but then looking more specifically at how these monuments represent Baltimore's history and where we were as a city at the time that the monuments were created and then installed. So I think looking at those kinds of issues would be important. And then, so we really have to just figure that out. But I think it's also important that we think about how we go about the process and, who should be involved in that process too. So those are things we still have to figure out.
And is there a time frame for when the signage would go up?
I do not know if we have concrete dates, but that's something we can follow up with. You.
Is there a dialogue presently going on about replacing the monuments if they're removed, with another monument in its place?
I think there's all of those things were discussed, but the reality is, and there's a process, and before you can even, I would imagine before you start talking about what you're going to replace it with, you would focus on if it's going to be removed and by whom and to where. So a lot of cart before the horse there. Anything else on the monuments? So thank you all very, very much for your hard work, and thank you, Karen. All right. We will move into other questions.
Well, 50 years, the agreement was approved today, very quickly, no discussion. Can you please talk a little bit about where we go from here from the city's perspective?
It's interesting that you would say very quickly, no discussion, based on the amount of public testimony that has been taken. And yeah, so your characterization of the vote is quite telling. I'm very pleased that the MOU was approved today on the Board of Estimates agenda. I think it is an unprecedented agreement that reflects an amazing amount of community dialogue, community engagement, and community benefit from a developer and related company that is interested in investing in our city, creating jobs, creating opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses, creating a better quality of life for the neighborhood surrounding the development. So I'm pleased that it was signed today. Not signed today, but approved today.
Taking a step back for a moment, when did the plank industry folks first come to you with this plan? About a year ago or so, and what did you think when you first heard about it, when they sat down and laid out what they wanted to do?
So this was, I think, a second attempt to develop a major footprint for Under Armour and expansion. There was talks a few years ago about a location closer to the Domino sugar plant, correct? So this was not, this is the conversation about an expanded Under Armour presence has been going on for several years. I don't remember the exact date that the Port Covington location was first discussed, but I'm in conversations with the leadership at Sagamore and Under Armour all the time about their interest, and I'm just pleased that the conversations and the plans are, I think, at a good pace, moving from dream to reality.
This MOU, particularly with the citywide community benefits, there has been much made about how the precedent has been set for future TIFs should they come. How does that make you feel personally that the next big developer that comes to town, they'll have to give the city something?
Yeah, I think the editorialization of these questions is quite interesting this morning. I think that the development that has happened under my administration is reflective of cooperation with investors and the community in a way that is a benefit to the city. I think I was extremely pleased with the South Baltimore Six and the way that they came to the table with the Sagamore Development team to make very clear and plain what they expected to do in partnership with Sagamore to improve the quality of life for all of the neighborhoods in South Baltimore. And I don't think any, to say give the city something, I think that the city is making significant investments to make this project happen. And we welcome the opportunity to work with Sagamore Development or any other investment team that wants to bring jobs and opportunity and move this city forward, because at the end of the day, we all benefit from that.
But to be fair, Councilman Stokes and even Bill at the time, they felt that the last big TIF, Harbor Point, the city didn't get nearly as much community benefit as it did with the Port Covington deal. I know you feel it's editorializing, but at the same time, this is still a huge deal, as the Under Armour CEO said, or Tom Geddes said.
Oh, it is a big deal.
Madam Mayor, what kind of structure will be in place in terms of oversight to ensure that the terms of the agreements over the course of 20 years are reached?
I'm sure you've noticed in the Board of Estimates meetings from time to time, the board itself is the accountability measure to make sure that things are, that the agreements are upheld. So that's in place and will be in place, no matter what administration is in place moving forward.
As this whole process was unfurling, did you give the plank industry folks any direction of what you'd like to see about an agreement, what goals you hope were met by the development,
Yeah.
any vision for what you...
So when I was here before, when we had the initial MOU, I was very clear that that was an entry point, the foundational agreement upon which the work of the council would happen. So I've been very clear that this was to be a project that was inclusive, that the jobs that were created by this project, like the other projects that have happened under my administration, that was a very specific and direct local hiring component, that there was a focus on making sure that, as in the other development projects that have happened under my administration, that we help prepare our residents for those opportunities. So, I was very clear that this was about more than infrastructure.
Your Honor, could you comment on the funds that were allocated or approved for the Board of Elections and training, and what are some of the changes that you think might occur because of that?
So I think this is an important point to make again. While there's city funds and there was on the Board of Estimates agenda today, I don't control the board of elections or any of the training or any of those things. So the governor appoints the Board of Election, the board members to do that work. So the questions should more appropriately be directed to them.
Any general reaction?
I hope they get it right this time.
I mean, are you convinced that they have made the fixes over the last few months to get it right in November?
I think it was very clear that there were mistakes made. The governor is aware of them, the board is aware of them. It's clear that they're making efforts to get it right because of the request for funding to do this training. My hope is that, with all of us watching and understanding the importance of this election coming up, that they will get it right.
One more on Fort Covington. There are many people who obviously think that this MOU and the deal in general is a great deal. You've got almost the entire council voted for it, Bill, many people, South Baltimore 6. But there are still some who are, holding out and saying it's not good enough. The labor unions are running the ads and having protests, and the ACLU and others. What do you have to say to those people? Should they be? Should their concerns be accommodated, or is what they're asking for unreasonable?
I don't think it's either of those things. I don't think what they're asking for is unreasonable. And as far as should their concerns be accommodated, I think their concerns have been heard very loud and clear from the very beginning. I don't think that there's ever in history a project of this size, this magnitude, and this impact that has unanimous approval. And that's not something that I strive for. I don't want perfection to be the enemy of the good, and certainly the enemy of progress. We work very hard to make this a deal that works for Baltimore City, and I think that the MOU reflects that. My hope is that everyone sees the benefit in it, but I certainly have not operated under that principle that you need 100% of the people on board before you're able to do anything.
Could you walk us back over the last couple of weeks and characterize your role as the agreement was reopened and renegotiated? Where were you during all this? Were you present? Were you being kept aware? Talk to us a little bit about your role in that, because you presented the baseline that you said.
Yeah, I did, and I was kept in the loop probably more than I would have chosen because of the time of day that some of these messages and the interactions and the length of them would happen. But, I've been in very active, certainly not at the table because that's, you have your representatives for that. But, yeah, I know I've been in the loop, engaged, involved. The issues that I've raised have been addressed on a continuing basis throughout this entire process.
And how will you hand the ball off to the next mayor on this issue? I mean, what advice or what conversation would you have with the next mayor about this?
So, Baltimore is a very heavily Democratic city, and I think the better than even money is on the fact that Senator Pugh will be our next mayor, and to that, understanding that, notwithstanding the upcoming general election, my promise to the senator was to make this the best transition that the city has ever seen. And on Port Covington or any other issue, I've pledged to make myself as available as possible, or not, if whatever suits her needs. But I certainly will not have what happened to me happen to the next administration, where there was no conversation, no memo, no nothing. The city deserves better than that, and I've made the commitment to ensure that whatever information that I can provide will be delivered in a way that will be helpful to the next administration.
Madam Mayor, with Kevin Planks, he's from Maryland. He's invested in the city in different ways already. So, how did that history affect this memorandum of understanding? Maybe your willingness to believe that Sagamore Development will do what it says in this memorandum of understanding.
I think that Kevin is very clear about who he is and where he's from, and what he believes about Baltimore and the potential for Baltimore's future. You don't have to just listen to him talk. You can see it in the work that he has done through Under Armour in the city, with the partnerships with the school system, partnerships with recreation and parks, and the the eagerness with which the Sagamore Development Team came to the table to make sure that this is a project that works for Baltimore. So, you know, I think it's one thing for somebody to say, you know, how they feel, and it's another to show how they feel about and their level of commitment, and Kevin Plank has certainly shown that in his actions.
Let's talk about, since you brought it up, transitioning to the next mayor. Have you started thinking about?
Did I bring that up?
Yes, you did.
I thought I was responding to a question, but again, the interpretations are vastly different in this
We can
room.
play the tape later, but either way.
Didn't she ask me the question, or was I not there?
Melody asked the question.
Either way, you said it, but either way, you just,
Oh my God.
that's the first time that has happened in the 3 years I had my shop. Okay, the question is, December is fast approaching. Have you thought about life after you leave City Hall
I
yet?
think about it all the time.
I'm sure. I mean, have you checked the one ads, or are you just going to take a break afterwards?
Neither.
I'm going to remember this moment for the rest of my life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.